the microphone to work, Matthew chapter 6. Matthew 6 will be in verse 19. And we're also going to be in Ecclesiastes. Now, in the Old Testament, I like to, again, I say this almost every Sunday, so please forgive me for being repetitive, but lots of times we have guests. Lots of times I don't know where people's understanding is, so please bear with me. But Ecclesiastes, if you're not sure where that is, it's just right after Psalms and Proverbs. Remember, they're right in the middle of the Bible. You can open it up right in the middle of the Old Testament. You've got Psalms and Proverbs, and then you got Ecclesiastes. And I just want to share with you briefly, before I read the scripture and start the sermon, that Ecclesiastes was written by Solomon, King David's son. And Solomon literally was the richest man in the history of the world. Even by today's standards, nobody could touch what he had. He pretty much owned the world when he was the king. The world, I realized there weren't as many people and all that kind of stuff, but he literally experienced everything you could experience. I mean, he had it all. Anything you want, Solomon had. Now, I want to show you how this kind of ties in with the communion message. A lot of times, and I think you guys know, I love you, I'm not getting on to you. This is just, I'm trying to help. So, because sometimes as preachers, you got to be careful not to be preachy. And I understand that. But I think so many times in the world that we live in, not always, but so many times the stories we go through, we create ourselves. By the things that we pursue and the things that we think we have to have and the things that we think that we have to do, we create our own storms. And we cause those problems in our lives ourselves. Now again, I'll say this one more time. Because some of you have really suffered. And you've suffered a lot of things that you didn't have anything to do with. I'm not always talking about that. And if that's what's going on, this doesn't apply to you. So I'm not trying to say that this hits everybody. But what I see in this world, so many storms and wounds are self-inflicted. People trying to get things and acquire things and do things that God never meant for you to do. That wasn't His plan. But we see all this stuff that the world's doing and all these things that people have, and we get like, I'm missing out. You know, I mean, they all look like they're having such a good time, and there's all so many things. And why don't I feel like that? You know, it drives me nuts. I don't watch hardly. You can ask my wife. Jeannie's done several miracles in her life. One of those is she's weaned me off of TV. I used to be the guy that was, straight line. But anyway, don't do that anymore. Just don't hardly watch. But what drives me nuts is I see these things where they'll show these commercials where these people like they're dancing and it's because they won something or they went to Sears and now they're going to do it or whatever. And I'm thinking, I've never danced like that. I've been happy because, and so it makes us think that if we don't have these things, get these things, acquire these things, do these things, somehow we're missing out of all these things that we could have. And most of those things are just things to get to say something or whatever. And so this morning, the sermon is about the storms that we cause because we think that we have to acquire and have and do all these things. And Jesus talked about at the beginning in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19. He said something you've all heard, but he said, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves can't break in and steal. For wherever your treasure is, there will your heart be also." My dad was a collector. Not a hoarder, although close. We didn't realize how bad it was until after he passed away and we started going through everything. But my dad was a collector of anything you can imagine. It did not matter what it was. And going through that house after he passed, it was like, I'm telling you, he left my mom and me and my sisters some work. My brother's useless. But anyway, he left us some work to do, to go through and clean all that up. And you can't imagine all the things that we had to go through that he had, that he collected over the years. Some of that came to me. There are some things I like to collect. I really have a really extensive collection of baseball cards. I was that kid that was actually never threw them away. And so I've got this really big, huge collection of baseball cards. Another thing I like to collect is knives. I've got a whole bunch of them. That was just one of the things my dad, I don't know, we always, growing up being in outdoors and hunting all that kind of stuff. I've got a huge, really big collection of knives. But let me tell you something that I found out a few years ago, quite to my chagrin. That if you're not careful when you store all that stuff up and put it away, if you're not careful, the mold and the rust and the moths, no matter how good you think you've done it, will destroy that. I've got a shirt that I'm real proud of. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it sounds kind of like a brag, but anyway. I've got a shirt I got given to me one time about something, and it's been in the back of the closet for 28 years now or something like that. But I'm proud of it. And I'm going to keep it, and all this stuff. And it's my shirt. It's just a polo, but it's got something on it. It's a long story. Anyway, I don't know how the moths get in there and do that stuff, but that thing's got holes in it. The moths get in here, and it's not got anything, because it's been back there and hadn't been taken out and cleaned in so long. And if you didn't know that, am I the only one that, surely I'm not the only one that's done that, found a hole in that shirt, or your stuff got moldy. Back from my coaching days, I had some awards and things like that, and I put them in these totes, and I sealed them up, and I had them all, I've got way back in 90-something, I was an all-state basketball coach, and there's a program that I had, I was really proud of that. You can't even open it and read it anymore. I didn't know that thing would do that. It's as mildewed and as nasty, and you can't even see the names. I'm like, come on, man. But anyway, my point is that all that stuff tears up, and it's going to tear up. And one time I went back, I was doing something with my knives. I've got one that's really valuable, really nice one that I bought a long time ago, and that sucker had some rust on it. And Kevin, don't get, I really did oil it down before I put it up. I didn't just throw it away. I did everything you're supposed to, and it's steel. And the older I get, here's what I'm trying to say. All that stuff that you're gathering up, it's going to rot one of these days. It's going to go away. You ain't going to have it. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to do anything. You're not even going to remember it one of these days. And here's what I see. We live in a world where people are just working themselves to death to get the stuff that's not even going to last, not even going to be with them one of these days. And the storms that I see, I'm telling you, I have a lot of people I get calls, my wife all the time, to do counseling. Sometimes it's marriage counseling, sometimes it's premarital, sometimes it's people are going through things. And the root of the problem, most of the time, is their stuff that's getting in the way of their life. I'm just telling you, it's their stuff. That's the root of the problem. And if it's not their stuff, it's the work that they're doing, neglecting their family or their children or their husband or their wives or their friends, trying to get the stuff that everybody else has. That's where it comes from. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. As a pastor, you're supposed to be open, and so I'll tell you. When I was a younger man, one of my greatest pleasures was when I would get a new car. Everybody talks about, the new car smell, and it would be so pretty, and everything would be, that was just, I used to have this, everything was just, and the worst feeling in the world, ever, is the first dent you put that thing, or the first scratch that you put on, or the first tear. It's just like, it would destroy my world when I got a dent. Now, if you want to go out and look at my truck, you can see that doesn't destroy my world anymore. And I made up my mind, I don't think I'm going to get it. Sorry, Joel, but I don't think I'm going to buy another new one. I'm just going to leave them. John Rose said one time, he said, look, when you get a new truck, just take your hammer and go out there and hit it. And go ahead and get it over with, and just take care of it, and then you don't have to worry about doing that. You'll just get that angst out of the way. Because especially you guys that are farmers or work out, you know that it's going to last you probably all 3 days if it lasts that long before you do something to it. But my whole point is this, that we all, our feelings, our emotions, where we find our joy, for too many people it's wrapped up in these things that they surround themselves with. Instead of God first, and then their family, their husbands, their wives, their children, all this kind of stuff. And Jesus said, look, all this stuff that you're acquiring, all of it is going to rust. The moths are going to eat it. And he wasn't making that up. I thought, well, that only happened in Jerusalem because they didn't have houses like we did. But in all the modern day houses, the moths are still going to get in your closet and eat your precious shirt. And they're still going to get in your tote that you sealed up, and the mildew's going to cover the. Can't even see myself on that picture. That thing's nasty. They're going to do that, and it's all for nothing. And so, way back in the Old Testament, King Solomon, who was, as you know, or if you don't know, literally was the wisest man on the earth. He asked God for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom. He was also the richest man on the earth, and he had experienced everything. And I just picked out some verses, and I want to read some of them today. I don't want to do as much preaching, because the Word of God is way better than my words, but just listen to this and see how this applies to you, and just see if you've recognized this in your life. Listen to what he says. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure, so enjoy yourself. And behold, it was futility. I said of laughter, it is madness, and of pleasure, what does it accomplish? I explored with my mind how to stimulate my body with wine, while my mind was guiding me wisely, and how to take hold of folly. And I could see what good there is for the sons of men to do under heaven the few years of their lives. I enlarged my works. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself. I planted them all kinds of fruit trees. I made ponds of water for myself. I irrigate the forest. I bought male and female slaves. I had homeborn slaves. I possessed flocks. I had herds larger than all those who preceded me before. I collected for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I provided for myself male and female singers and the pleasures of many concubines. Then I became great and increased more than all who had preceded me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also stood by me. And all that my eyes desired, I did not refuse them. Y'all know anybody like that? That all their eyes desire, they won't say no? I mean, they're going to get everything they can and then more. I did not refuse them. I did not withhold from my heart any pleasure. For my heart was pleased because of all my labor, and this was my reward for all my labor. Any of y'all been there? This is my reward. I'm going to go out and get me a... Yeah, all right, I won't keep... Then I considered all my activities which my hands had done, and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity and striving after the wind, and there was no profit under the sun. Have y'all ever heard something to the effect that, ever heard anybody say this, that I know money can't buy happiness, or I know that's up at the root of all evil, but I'd sure like to try? Y'all ever heard anybody say that kind of saying? King Solomon, the richest, wealthiest, most of ever said, I'm telling y'all, from experience, I had everything you can have. From the money, to the concubines, to the houses, to the gardens, to the singers, to the entertainment, and it was not enough. Did you know that we are, in America, the richest that we've ever been? The more that we've ever had. There's never been a time where this country has been this prosperous. I know we have all these troubles, but if you travel with me to some of the countries that I go to, you'll see we are the most prosperous by a mile. And yet, suicide, drug addiction, fighting, striving, all these things, it's just growing and growing and growing. And it's growing right along with the rate of prosperity. Now, when are we going to sit back one of these days and go, maybe that's not the answer. All the stuff, all the striving, all the things, maybe that's not the answer to what's going to make us happy and what's going to fill our heart. Let's go on. Verse 18 of Ecclesiastes 2, listen to this. Thus I hated all the fruit of my labor for which I had labored under the sun. For I must leave it to the man who will come after me. I want y'all to listen to me. Some of the kids in this room are going to hate my guts after I say this. But I have not one time in my personal life, maybe you have, seen a family leave a lot of stuff, to their kids, and never seen that work out good. I have never seen that work out good, ever. And I hear these families say, and if you said it, I'm getting on to you gently, but I'm giving you some good advice. I hear that, especially men will say this, well, I want to give my family all the things I never had. I want them, listen to me, do you know why you're doing as well as you are? Because nobody gave it to you. And you had to learn how to work to get it. And that's why you have been successful where you are. And when you hand it to a kid or somebody that didn't work for it, how many times have we said this? They don't appreciate it. They don't care. They tear it up. They don't, because they don't have any ownership in it. And yet we just continue because we think we're depriving our kids Because they don't have, I'm going to tell you, my dad, among all these things, one of the things I appreciate now that I hated his guts for, but I always, don't say you didn't hate your dad's guts when you were 15. Don't any of you lie and say that you didn't hate your dad. I hated his guts when I was 15. Didn't hand me squat. Like, Dad, so-and-so, I don't care. I don't care. And he was not being funny or rude, or, I mean, it's like, I don't care. If you want it, go work for it. Figure out a way to get it. Figure out a way to earn it. You know, and I can tell you story after story. But my point is, I am so thankful that my father taught me that if I want something or whatever, that I got to work, that I got to earn it, that I got to do something. Nobody's going to hand it to you. They're not going to give it to you. And I am so thankful that there was nothing that was just, you know, my mom's still alive, but when she passes, my dad's gone, you know, when they pass, I don't expect anything. I don't know if there'll be anything or not. I don't care. It's what I'm saying is I really don't care if there's anything left over or not. Because they left me something a whole lot better than CDs and houses. They left me a work ethic. They left me the knowledge and the understanding of what life is about and what matters and how to be happy with what I have, whether it's a whole lot or whether it's a whole little, like the Apostle Paul said. And then y'all realize, let me say a commercial break right here. Y'all realize everybody likes to quote that stupid verse. That's not a stupid verse. They quote this good verse stupidly. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Go back and read the previous part of what he was talking about, where he says, I've learned when I have a lot, and when I got absolutely nothing, I'm just as happy. Because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, which says I can be happy if I got enough, and I can be happy if I don't have anything. And so what we're doing is, in this society, is we're teaching our kids, and we're teaching society, that your worth and your value and your life is to be measured by what you attain and acquire. And we're finding out that it's not. And so they get it. They get it. They attain it and they acquire it. And it's not life. And so they despair of life. And so they run from life either by drugs or alcohol or suicide or whatever. And I'm not getting on anyway because everybody's family's been touched by it. So I'm not getting on to you. Mine too. Okay? Guilty. There, done it. But what I'm trying to say is, it's not going to change unless God's people start listening to what Jesus said, who said, quit striving to store up all this stuff. Because it's going to, and Solomon said, and all you're going to do is leave it to somebody. And listen to what this says. This is, I had forgotten about this. It says, verse 18, I hated all the fruit of my labor that I labored under the sun, for I must leave it to the man who will come after me. Verse 19. And who knows whether he will be a wise man or a fool? You leave all that junk to your kids, they usually become fools. They usually don't, because they didn't work for it, and they didn't earn it, and they don't care about it, and they don't have any ownership. Now, you young guys in here that are hating my guts right now, one of these days, you will appreciate the fact, I'm going to do you a favor, but it's the truth. If your parents don't hand you everything, if they teach you to work, if they teach you to be responsible, if they tell you that's your job, that's your responsibility, you will one day grow up like me. It takes a while, but I'm telling you, I am absolutely so thankful. Because you know what's happened? Watch this. Let me tell you the second thing that's happened because of that. And I don't say this proudly. And by the way, I'm always dependent on God. I understand that. I shouldn't. But I'm not dependent on anybody. I don't have to have somebody take care of me. Even when I got nothing, I know how to go out and get what I need and take care of my business because I was taught to do it. I was taught to survive when I have a lot. I was taught to survive when I don't have anything, and I was taught what to do about it because I didn't get everything handed to me. Now, I'm not here to talk about me about this. I'm talking about in this society what we are seeing that's going on, these storms that are raging, that are causing people to do all this kind of stuff, is largely based on the fact that in America, our culture says that if you want to be happy, you've got to do this, and you've got to have this, and you've got to acquire this, and this has got to be part of your life. And then we get there, and it's not. It's not anything that we thought it was going to be. And we don't know why we're not happy. Listen to some more of these verses. Just listen. Who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will have control over all the fruit of my labor, for which I have labored by acting wisely under the sun. This too is vanity. Therefore I completely despaired of all the fruit of my labor for that which I had labored under the sun. He said, I finally realized it was nothing. I despaired of that. I didn't care of everything I had. When there is a man who has labored with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, then he gives his legacy to one who has not labored with them. This too is vanity and great evil. In other words, what I just said, parents, is when you give something to a child who has not worked and earned, that's evil. And evil will come of that. That's what it leads to. Let me read you a couple more verses. Look here. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 4. Listen to this one. And I like this. I know that all of our old sayings usually have biblical, but sometimes I didn't know until I read it. Listen to Ecclesiastes 4:4. I have seen that every labor and every skill which is done is the result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. Have you seen the Keeping Up with the Joneses? Several thousand years ago, Solomon said, it's keeping up with the Joneses that causes you all these problems. Have you ever noticed, maybe you haven't, but half the things that I see people get, they don't really know they need until their neighbor gets it. And then they think, I need that. I really do need that. They were fine without it until they saw that they didn't need it. Now, I'm not going to continue to read all of them, but here's the point. There were some others, but I forgot which one I marked, so I'm not going to continue to do that. Here's the point. We're living in a world that is full of storms that have been caused by ourselves. And even the ones that we didn't cause, okay? I'm not talking about those. That's just like another sermon, another time. We'll talk about how to deal with those. But what I see every single day in the counseling that I do, the children that I work with, the adults that I work with, everything, is these storms that they're bringing on in their lives. Trying to get all these things and do all this stuff that the world tells you that you need to do. And it's killing you. There's one of those verses in there, I don't know where it is. I thought I had it marked, and I didn't mark it, but here's what it says. Let me just give you the Jon Hazell translation of it. You're doing all this stuff that it makes your mind so busy you can't even go to sleep at night. Any of y'all ever, I don't know how many people I've had tell me, my mind won't shut off. I can't go to sleep at night. And it's in there. You can look, Ecclesiastes short book, so if you really care, it's in there. But it literally says you lay down at night and you can't go to sleep because your mind won't quit. Because of all this stuff that you got to do. It took me years and years and years and years, but I'm finally to the point where I can actually pretty much fall asleep when I go to bed. It still takes me a few minutes, but used to it was an hour. I'd roll around because my mind wouldn't quit. It would just not stop. There was all this kind of junk, and all of it was just worthless and fruitless, and I couldn't go to sleep. And I tossed and I turned. Y'all ever do that? And then, and I know this is like, but this is, maybe not sound like a preacher, but I'm trying to help you out here. Also, way back in the day when I was younger, if I woke up at 1 or 2 or 3, I was done. I wouldn't go back to sleep because my mind would immediately start, and it wouldn't stop. And I'd roll over. Y'all ever do that? Well, I got 2 hours if I go to sleep now. Well, I got an hour if I go to sleep. Nobody ever counts down. Okay, like me. And through God's grace and learning and growing in this area, I don't have that problem anymore. No, I'm not old and senile. No, I'm not. It's not that. It's just that my mind, I can shut it off. I can leave it because I'm not striving for all these things. If I wake up at 2, I don't care. I'll roll right back over and go to sleep. Not bother me in the least. Because I'm not worried about all these different things. You know why? Because I finally discovered in Matthew 6:33, where Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added on to you. I know this is a stupid question, but do you think God loves you? Do you think God cares about you? Did Jesus say, I will provide what you need? Yes. Then why are you striving? And why are you fretting? And why are you worrying? And why are you killing yourself? And why are you not enjoying life? And why are you not relaxing? And why are you not resting? And why are you not smiling? And why are you taking all this junk to make yourself happy and get through the day when God already has that for you? If you just stop. Stop. Just quit and rest. Now, I got to make it because somebody will meet me back there. I didn't say you don't have to have a job and you don't need to make, that's not what I didn't say go be a hippie and a commune. That's not what I said, okay? Although, maybe that would work for some of you. I didn't say that. God made us to work. And He made us to make a living. And He made us to provide for our families. You're supposed to do that. But I got a buddy. He kind of put it in perspective. Some of you in here will know, so I'm going to say that we were having an argument about teacher salaries a couple of years ago. And somebody was making an argument about, how we don't make enough, which is true not. But anyway, this friend of mine raised quite a few kids on a teacher's salary. He says, he put on there, he says, let me tell you how I did it. He said, I learned the secret. You got to give, he said, you got to give your kids everything they need and half of what they want. He said, that's how you make it for a teacher's salary. We think that we have to do all this stuff to keep our kids up with, any of y'all won't admit this, but any of y'all think you're cheating your kids if they're not in 42 things that all the other kids are in? Yes, you do. You got to enroll them in this, you got to drive. I got parents right now that cannot meet each other coming and going from the 51 things their children are enrolled in, and they're trying to do. And another thing you're doing with your child is, when you're going to teach your child that someday they're going to have to learn to say, no, I can't do that. I don't have time for that. I'm neglecting my family. I'm neglecting my health. I'm neglecting my peace. Are we going to teach them that? Or are we just going to teach them, you see, in this world of storms, Jesus says, if you'll focus on me, I'll show you where to go. I'll show you what I want you to do. I'll provide everything you need to feed your family and clothe your children and drive a car and get it. I'll provide that. I know you need a car. I know you need clothes. I know you need food. I know you got to send your kids to school. I'll take care of that. I'll provide exactly what you're supposed to do, and you'll be fine. And yet, very few of us in here actually believe that. Very few. And say everybody, but very few, to the point that we'll just relax and trust God in His Word and quit living every day in the storms. Every single day. Because we're caught up in those so bad. And I can tell you from a man who finally got out of those storms, it's pretty nice. So be in the peace and the rest and all that kind of stuff. And I have found out God will do what He said He would do. He'll provide even when you didn't think it was going to be enough. And He'll take care of you when you weren't sure. He takes care of you and He provides. So here's my challenge to you today. Seriously. My challenge is to ask, John Collins isn't here today, but his favorite thing he always tells me when I preach something like this, he says, we just got to learn to determine between wants and needs. That's what's really, really, really a need. I'm going to challenge you today to do an inventory of your life, because you need to. We all need to. Do an inventory and ask yourself, is this a want or is this a need? Do I really, really need to be doing this? Do I really, really need to be striving? Is this something that I need, or is this just something that I want to do? And is it causing me angst and stress in my life? And if it is, do I have the courage and the guts to cut it off and say, no, I can't do that, because it's hurting my health, it's hurting my mental stability, it's hurting my family, it's hurting this. Do you have the courage to do that? I'm going to challenge you to do a mental inventory and see some of the things that you could shed, that maybe it's not Jesus who needs to calm your storm. It's you who needs to calm that by getting rid of some of the junk that's causing the storms in your life. Now, I apologize that I didn't do a sermon today that says if you love God, He's going to give you all this stuff. I'm sorry that I didn't do that. I'm sorry that I didn't say He's going to... I apologize, but that's not what He created you. He created you not to give you junk. He created you to give you Himself. When He gives you Himself, you'll find the greatest peace that you've ever had. Let's bow and pray. Father God, I thank You that even in the midst of all of our futility and our striving and the silly things we do, You still love us. You still walk with us. You still are patient with us. You don't give up on us. You don't throw us away. You don't. I just thank You, Father. But still, help us, Father, to realize that we don't need to test You and try Your patience and always, always put You to the test. But sooner or later, we have to come to the place in our lives where we believe that Your word is true, that Your promises are real, and that we can rest in You and trust You that You'll do what You say You're going to do. Father, I pray for this church family. I pray for all of Your children. Teach us to trust and rest in You. It's in Jesus' name I pray.